So we've come to the last canto of Book 10, the Book of the Double Twilight. These two kinds of twilight. They are the twilight of the ideal and the twilight of the earthly real. Earthly real. You can say the earthly reality. Sri Aurobindo labels both of these as dream twilights. They are not fully real. But these are powerful experiences that death is showing to Savitri on her journey. And the first three cantos take place in the dream twilight of the ideal. It's a beautiful, misty, pre-dawn twilight in which all the forms and colors look magical, alluring, attractive. When we first become aware of some high ideal, it's so inspiring. It attracts us. But what death points out to Savitri is that these are just dreams. They never become real. That's even part of their charm, that they never become real. But Savitri does not accept this from him. And we have Canto 3, the debate of love and death, where each of them put their arguments. But she doesn't accept any of his arguments. And now, last week we entered the dream twilight of the earthly real, which is a much less attractive kind of twilight. Sri Aurobindo paints it like one of those awful townscapes of the time of the Industrial Revolution, when people were packed together in slums, the factories were belching out black smoke and even flames, and there was a clangor of machinery and people laboring very, very hard. And this is, of course, a symbolic landscape. And there she sees as if parts of this dark, struggling landscape, the shapes of nature and the arts of men in symbolic form, philosophies and disciplines and laws and the dead spirit of old societies. And even the wonderful saving words that have come in the past, the revelations, the delivering words, the Gospels, they appear also in this symbolic landscape, emptied of their mission and their strength to save. Each of these revelations in their hour have been claimed eternal, but they have passed, and now she sees them passing. Ideals, systems, sciences, poems, crafts, tireless, there perished and again recurred. Some creative power is calling them back, no? But all were dreams crossing an empty vast. So that's where we stopped last time. I'm going to read on from there First, just the last part of the section, and then I'll move on to the next section. Ascetic voices called of lonely seers on mountain summits or by river banks, or from the desolate heart of forest glades, seeking heaven's rest or the spirit's worldless peace, or in bodies motionless like statues, fixed in tranced cessations of their sleepless thought, sat sleeping souls. And this too was a dream. All things the past has made and slain were there. Its lost, forgotten forms that once had lived. And all the present loves as new revealed. And all the hopes the future brings had failed already, caught and spent in efforts vain, repeated fruitlessly age after age. Unwearied, all returned, insisting still, because of joy in the anguish of pursuit, and joy to labor, and to win and lose, and joy to create and keep, and joy to kill. The rolling cycles passed and came again, brought the same toils and the same barren end, forms ever new and ever old, the long, appalling revolutions of the world. Once more arose the great destroying voice, the voice of death. Across the fruitless labor of the worlds, his huge denials, all defeating might, pursued the ignorant march of dolorous time. Behold the figures of this symbol realm, its solid outlines of creative dream, inspiring the great concrete tasks of earth. In its motion parable of human life, here thou canst trace the outcome nature gives to the sin of being and the error in things, and the desire that compels to live, and man's incurable malady of hope. In an immutable order's hierarchy, where nature changes not, man cannot change. Ever he obeys her fixed mutation's law. In a new version of her oft-told tale, in ever-wheeling cycles, turns the race. His mind is pent in circling boundaries, for mind is man, beyond thought he cannot soar. If he could leave his limits, he would be safe. He sees, but cannot mount to his greater heavens. Even winged, he sinks back to his native soil. He is a captive in his net of mind and beats soul wings against the walls of life. In vain his heart lifts up its yearning prayer, peopling with brilliant gods the formless void. Then, disappointed, to the void he turns, and in its happy nothingness asks release, the calm nirvana of his dream of self. The word in silence ends, in naught the name. Apart, amid the mortal multitudes, he calls the Godhead incommunicable to be the lover of his lonely soul, or casts his spirit into its void embrace. Or he finds his copy in the impartial all. He imparts to the immobile his own will, attributes to the eternal wrath and love, and to the ineffable lends 1,000 names. Hope not to call God down into his life. How shalt thou bring the everlasting here? There is no house for him in hurrying time. Vainly thou seekst in matter's world an aim. No aim is there, only a will to be. All walk by nature, bound forever the same. So this is not Sri Aurobindo's view. This is not our view. This is the view of everything that denies all the possibilities that Sri Aurobindo wants to show us, all the great, even he says, inevitable fulfillments that lie before us. Rosa, you will start today? Yes?
The same voices call of lonely seers on mountain summits or by river banks, or from the desolate path of forest glades, seeking heaven's rest of their spirits, wordless peace, or in bodies motionless like statues fixed in transit cessation of their sleepless thought, sad sleeping souls, and this too was a dream.
So this is another side to the effort of human beings. There's the spiritual effort, no? But that's an effort to leave this world. But death shows this to Savitri also. These ascetic voices, the people who leave the world, all the pleasures and relationships of the world, they go into harsh and difficult environments all alone. So she hears the voices of these lonely seers. They sit there on the tops of mountains or by river banks, or sometimes they live in the heart of the deep forest, from the desolate heart of forest glades. They are seeking rest, release, peace, the rest of heaven, of reaching some higher state of consciousness, or of going even beyond all world into pure spirit, the spirit's worldless peace. Or there are bodies there, in bodies, unmoving bodies, like statues, souls fixed. They have been able to go into trance and to stop, or to pause at least, the sleepless thought of the mind of man. And those souls are as if asleep. But this too is a dream. This is not a reality either. You read, Bhavan?
All things the past has made and slain were there. Its lost, forgotten forms that once had lived, and all the present lost as new revealed, and all the hopes the future brings had failed, already caught and spent in efforts vain, repeated fruitlessly age after age.
Yes. All things the past has made, all the achievements of the past. And time, of course, brings great achievements to fulfillment, but then it also destroys them. No? So all the things the past has made and slain were there. The lost, forgotten forms of things that had lived in the past. No? So all those things are symbolically represented in this world. No? But also everything that the present loves, everything that we think, oh, this is new and wonderful, we've discovered or been taught new things, that is also there. And all the hopes that the future brings, we look into the future and we see hopes, no? But though all those things, the hopes of the present and the hopes of the future, there in that symbolic world, they are shown as having failed already. They've been achieved, they've been caught, and they've been wasted in vain efforts, useless efforts. And all that gets repeated fruitlessly, age after age.
And where it all returned, insisting still, because of joy in the anguish of pursuit, and joy to labor and the win and lose, and joy to create and keep, and joy to kill.
So why does it all keep coming back? Because there's some kind of delight involved in it. All different kinds and tastes of delight. Joy in the anguish of pursuit, when you're trying to achieve something, there's some kind of excitement and adventure and satisfaction in that. No? Some kind of thrill when you are pursuing some aim. No? And there's joy in working hard and doing things as well as you can. And there's joy in winning, also maybe in losing. And there's a joy in creating things. There's a joy in keeping and maintaining things. And there's a joy in destroying them also. Martin.
The rolling cycles passed and came again, brought the same toils to the same barren end, forms ever new and ever old, the long, appalling revolutions of the world.
Such an amazing line, no? It runs over, it's more than one line. The long, appalling revolutions of the world. And by revolutions, it doesn't necessarily mean violent political revolutions. It means like the revolutions of a wheel going round and round and round. And this is appalling, the fact that it goes on round and round and round without changing. This is somehow dreadful, appalling.
Appalling means?
Appalling, it means something is appalling. It's too terrible to contemplate. Things that you don't want to think about. It takes a long time for these cycles, these rolling cycles. No? But they're bringing the same hard work and the same barren end. In the end, they're fruitless. At least this is how death is showing to Savitri the earthly reality. Bom, you would read?
Once more arose a great destroying voice across the ruthless level of the world. With huge deniers all defeating might, pursuit of ignorant march of glorious time.
Yes. So this is what death has shown to her, and now he's going to speak to Savitri again. And again, in his voice, there is this denial. He's saying no to everything, that it's so useless, without any value or purpose or fulfillment possible. He's showing all the fruitless labor of the worlds. No worthwhile output at all. And time goes on and on and on. The ignorant march of dolorous time, time that is full of sorrow and suffering. So, as time goes on, it hears that voice of death, saying, look how worthless, how meaningless all this is. And that's what he wants to convince Savitri. So what does he say? You want to ask something, Tom? Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question about the paragraph before.
Yes.
Could you say something about this? If all hope is fruitlessly, if that's what it is, what's then the meaning of an ideal?
Yes,
The function
exactly.
of an ideal?
No function. Worthless. And why do we go on with all this labor? Because there's some kind of joy in that, even when it's painful. That's all. Nothing's going to come of it, he says.
And death is saying this.
Yes,
Okay.
this is what death is saying. The great
Aurobindo speaking.
No, that's what I wanted to say. This is, yeah, this is not Sri Aurobindo's view at all. No. But it is a view that's somehow there in our human consciousness. No, there are pessimists and there are optimists, and if you are a real pessimist, you might see things like this, and sometimes we can't help seeing things like this. That all that labor, for what?
For what? To die.
Yeah.
People say that.
Or it just gets destroyed. No, he even says that the millennial products of a nation's toil just gets destroyed in one idiot hour. So what was it all about? What was it all for? So what does he say? Mila, you will read. Huh?
Behold the figures of this symbol realm, its solid outlines of creative dream, inspiring the great concrete tasks of earth.
So here he explains where they are. They're in a symbolic realm, in the subtle world, and it appears there, outlines, landscapes, figures, all these things that he's been showing to Savitri. No? It's solid outlines. They are the product of creative dream. And those creative dreams have been inspiring the great concrete tasks of earth, the things that get worked out in the material realm. So he's going to say, if you look here in this symbol realm, you will see what happens, what really happens on earth. Who is at the back there? Will you read, Sarojini? Yeah.
In its motion parables of human life, here thou canst track the outcome nature gives to the sin of being and the error in things and the desire that compel to live and man's incredible melody of hopes.
Yeah, of hope, yeah. So here in this symbol realm, you look at all this that's going on here, and you will be able to see what nature, what outcome, what result she gives. And he puts it almost as if what nature does is punishing, what outcome she gives to the sin of being, as if just to exist you're doing something wrong. No? And you will be punished for it. And there's an error built into things. It's all kept going by this drive of desire that compels people to go on living. And the other thing is man's incurable malady of hope, as if hope is a disease which can't be cured. Mankind can't be cured of this terrible disease of hope. And that's what keeps all this fruitlessly going round and round and round forever. So we will say it again, this is not Sri Aurobindo's view of things at all. It's the very, very opposite of it. Sergei.
In an immutable order's hierarchy, where nature changes not, man cannot change. Ever he obeys the fixed mutation's law. In a new version of your oft-told tale, in ever-willing cycles turns the race.
Yes. So this is the key to that viewpoint. if nature is fixed, if everything is fixed and determined, and there's a hierarchy of planes and an order in the universe, where nature doesn't change, man cannot change. If nature is fixed and mechanical, as actually many people believe these days, then how can human beings change? It's human nature. You can't change it. Yeah? Because human beings are following this fixed law of mutation. Things change, but they always stay the same. No? So what we are living over and over again is a new version of her oft-told tale. She's told the same story over and over again. Now it's a new version, but it's still the same story. In ever-wheeling cycles turns the race. The human race is just involved in this turning round and round and round of the unstoppable wheel. You'll read, yes?
His mind is spent in circling boundaries, for mind is man, beyond thought he cannot serve.
So,
if he could leave his limits, he would be safe. His zeal but cannot mount to his greater heavens, even when he sinks back to his native soil. He is a captive in his net of mind, and best soul wins against the walls of life.
So this is about us, the nature of human beings. We have a mind, but we can only think within boundaries, within a certain range. Pent, it means confined, limited. And these boundaries are always circling. We don't notice how limited they are. And he says, mind is man. Man is the mental being. He can't rise beyond thought. Soar is what a bird does. It flies up so beautifully. But he says that man cannot soar above thought. It's not true at all, but anyway, that's what he says. If he could leave his limits, if he could go beyond these boundaries, then he would be safe, he would be saved. He can see those other possibilities. He sees the greater heavens, the higher levels of consciousness, but he can't climb up there. Even if he's got wings, he still sinks back to the native soil, as if we are tied to this earth where we have been born. Or we're like a bird, or our souls are like birds that have been caught in a net, captive in this net of mind. The soul has higher possibilities, but it can't go beyond what the mind allows it to go. And the walls of life are also very limiting. So like a little bird who's caught in a room, can't get out. The limitations of life. These are all holding the soul pent, captive. Joel.
In vain his heart lifts up its yearning prayer, peopling with brilliant gods the formless void. Then disappointed to the void he turns, and in its happy nothingness asks release. The calm nirvana of his dream of self, the word in silence ends in not the name.
Yes. So that's why, first we lift up our hearts in yearning prayer, we beg to be set free, and we imagine this great emptiness full of brilliant gods who will help us. But then we get disappointed. We realize that there are no gods there. And then we think, well, then the best thing will be just to dissolve in that nothingness. That will be happy. We would be happy then if we just dissolve. Then we would be free. Then we would be at peace. So that the aim becomes then this calm nirvana of his dream of self, when we lose all individuality, all separateness, dissolve into that calm. So the creative word then ends in silence. The name, the individualization ends in nothingness. Would you read?
Apart from the mortal multitudes, he calls the Godhead incommunicable, to be the lover of his lonely soul, or casts his spirit into its void embrace.
Yes. So, such a person who's become aware of the soul and of the problem, he stands apart amid all the other multitudes. Or perhaps when he says he means man. Man is the one among all these multitudes of creatures that must die. But perhaps man is the only one who calls to God. But there's no way really to communicate with God. No? But still we call God to be the lover of the lonely soul. There's some longing like that. No? Or he wants to cast his spirit, to dissolve his spirit into that empty embrace, or that embrace of nothingness. Would you like to read?
Where he finds his copy in the impartial all, he imparts to the immobile his own will, attributes to the eternal wrath and love, and to the ineffable lends 1,000 names.
Yes, so this is what death says human beings imagine. That we see this universe, this impartial all, but we imagine it as a copy of ourselves. So we think that this immobile, unchanging, has a will like ours, similar to ours. And that this eternal feels anger and love just the way we do. To the ineffable, to that one which can never be expressed, we give it, we lend it 1,000 names. We identify it with this or that.
Here he is noting the bhakti of.
When we imagine a personal God, yes. Or it's this. The scientists mock us very much for anthropomorphism. If we think that even animals or insects or things in nature, that they are behaving like as if they were human beings with feelings and ideas. No? But still, perhaps there is something in it. Tone.
Hope not to call God down into his life. How shalt thou bring the everlasting year? There is no house for him in hurrying time. Vainly thou seekst in matter's world an aim. No aim is there, only a will to be.
So here he's speaking directly to Savitri. We can see that because he says, vainly thou seekst. And he tells her, don't hope to call God down into the life of man, into the life of human beings. How are you going to hope to bring what is eternal down into this world? There's no room, there's no place for God in this hurrying time of many moments. And you seem to be looking for an aim, a purpose in this world of matter. But there isn't any aim. There only seems to be this will to be, this drive to exist and to continue existing. Chandra.
All walk by nature born forever the same. Look on these forms that stay awhile and pause. These live that long and still then are no more. These structures that have no upbeat truth. The silver creeds that cannot save themselves, but to the brush in the strangling hands of the years, discarded from means, thought, grown first by time.
Shall we stop there? This goes on and on. Shall we stop there? All walk, everybody's walking, bound by nature, are the same rules, always the same, it doesn't change. So he says to Savitri, look at these forms, they come, they stay a while, and then they pass away. There are these lives that are full of longing, they have aims or desires, they struggle and strive, but then they're gone. These structures, we make mental structures, which he showed her, they have no abiding truth. They don't remain. There are creeds. Human beings believe in things that will save them. But these are savior creeds, beliefs that cannot save themselves. They perish in the strangling hands of the years. Strangling, something strangles, gets you by the throat and won't let you breathe. No? So time is like that. It strangles you sooner or later. And your beliefs, your ideas, all that. They get, so those savior creeds perish in the strangling hands of the years. They get discarded. There were people who believed things in the past, thousands of years ago. Now we think that's just superstition. We discard that from our thought. They're proved false by time. There are philosophies, amazing philosophies, that strip all problems bare, examine everything, give an explanation for everything, but they've never solved anything since time began. There are sciences, all powerful sciences, or sciences that believe they are all powerful, by which men learn of what the suns are made. Now the physicists can tell us, at least their ideas. They transform all forms to serve their outward needs, ride through the sky and sail beneath the stars, but learn not what they are or why they came. That's the problem with us human beings. I think this is the longest sentence in Savitri. It starts on line 123, 127.
27, 127
to 161. So somebody who's good at mathematics can tell us how many lines. Suresh isn't here. 34 lines, yes. I think this must definitely be the longest line in Savitri.
40.
So we are going to stop in the middle of it. Yeah? Next week we'll go on with the other half of this longest sentence in Savitri. But you get the general gist of it, no? He's saying all this is useless.
Ascetic voices called of lonely seers on mountain summits or by river banks, or from the desolate heart of forest glades, seeking heaven's rest, or the spirit's worldless peace, or in bodies motionless like statues, fixed in tranced cessations of their sleepless thought, sad sleeping souls. And this too was a dream. All things the past has made and slain were there, its lost, forgotten forms that once had lived, and all the present loves as new revealed, and all the hopes the future brings had failed already, caught and spent in efforts vain, repeated fruitlessly age after age. Unwearied, all returned, insisting still, because of joy in the anguish of pursuit, and joy to labor and to win and lose, and joy to create and keep, and joy to kill. The rolling cycles passed and came again, brought the same toils and the same barren end, forms ever new and ever old, the long, appalling revolutions of the world. Once more arose the great destroying voice. Across the fruitless labor of the worlds, his huge denials, all defeating might, pursued the ignorant march of dolorous time. Behold the figures of this symbol realm, its solid outlines of creative dream, inspiring the great concrete tasks of earth. In its motion parable of human life, here thou canst trace the outcome nature gives to the sin of being, and the error in things, and the desire that compels to live, and man's incurable malady of hope. In an immutable order's hierarchy, where nature changes not, man cannot change. Ever he obeys her fixed mutation's law. In a new version of her oft-told tale, in ever-wheeling cycles turns the race. His mind is pent in circling boundaries, for mind is man. Beyond thought he cannot soar. If he could leave his limits, he would be safe. He sees, but cannot mount to his greater heavens. Even winged, he sinks back to his native soil. He is a captive in his net of mind, and beats soul wings against the walls of life. In vain his heart lifts up its yearning prayer, peopling with brilliant gods the formless void. Then, disappointed, to the void he turns, and in its happy nothingness asks release, the calm nirvana of his dream of self. The word in silence ends, in naught the name. Apart amid the mortal multitudes, he calls the Godhead incommunicable to be the lover of his lonely soul, or casts his spirit into its void embrace. Or he finds his copy in the impartial all. He imparts to the immobile his own will, attributes to the eternal wrath and love, and to the ineffable lends 1,000 names. Hope not to call God down into his life. How shalt thou bring the everlasting here? There is no house for him in hurrying time. Vainly thou seek'st in matter's world an aim. No aim is there, only a will to be. All walk by nature bound, forever the same. Look on these forms that stay a while and pass, these lives that long and strive, then are no more. These structures that have no abiding truth, the Saviour creeds that cannot save themselves, but perish in the strangling hands of the years, discarded from man's thought, proved false by time. Philosophies that strip all problems bare, but nothing ever have solved since earth began. And sciences omnipotent in vain, by which men learn of what the suns are made, transform all forms to serve their outward needs, ride through the sky and sail beneath the sea, but learn not what they are or why they came.